Welcome back to the Verizon IndyCar Series. The Firestone 600 from Texas Motor Speedway. It's round 8 of the 2014 season, and it's just in over 10 minutes from here, just outside Fort Worth. We talk about Townsend Bell and all of the track walks and track maps that he does for us, giving us a lap around all of the racetracks. Well, when you come to Texas, you got to use some big-time Texas technology to give us a big-time look at Texas Motor Speedway.
Hey guys, I'm over here, back straightaway, in front of Big Haas, the world's biggest TV. This is like a man cave for 100,000 people. This thing is ridiculously big, but let's use it to go for a lap around Texas Motor Speedway. So turn 4, really tough here because there's a vicious bump right in the middle of the high line off the apex, about 30 feet up the track. You're going to see Charlie Kimball here last year hit that thing. You'll never see it, but you'll feel it in the car. Big impact into the outside wall, and that'll sneak up on you in a hurry. And then over at turn 2, the camber is really tough, really cambered in the corners here, but at the exit of turn 2, it rolls off in a really, really big way. And if you're inside a car like Pagano is on Marco Andretti, you've got to back out of it like he just did in order to not get side-by-side contact. Now, another really hard part about Texas is on the apron. Under green flag pit stops, when you're coming into the pits, on the apron, there are bumps everywhere. Again, you can't see them, but you sure can feel them. Charlie Kimball doing his best under a green flag stop to maximize his speed, and same thing with Graham Rahal at the other end of the track. Big bumps on the apron there. You're trying to get the power down hard so as not to lose any ground under a green flag stop, and you can make easy mistakes there. Here's Charlie Kimball through turn 2 on that apron, over 150 miles an hour, things jumping around all over the place as he tries to blend back up into traffic without losing any time. So why do we need a television that's as big as a football field? Well, folks, we're in Texas, and everything down here is bigger and badder, and it's time to get it on tonight. So let's go big at Texas Motor Speedway. Woo!
Townsend Bell getting rid of the Robert Graham hat for the cowboy hat and the 6-shooter. It's great to have him in the booth here with me this weekend. Townsend, welcome. Last time we saw Townsend Bell was at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and he had a great run. It's great to see him standing here, but things didn't turn out the way you wanted, T-Bell.
Well, the start of the race was great until we had a little issue there with Kanaan on the inside pit wall. That knocked my left rear toe out. And then I got touched here when I was going 3-wide with Ed and Hinch. The left rear got another brush. And, man, we were second at the Indy 500 with 20 laps to go. And then that left rear just let go on me in a big way. I think the toe link broke. Thing was destroyed. I went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. But we were competitive. We were giving it everything. There's only one winner of the Indy 500. Nothing else matters. And we'll be back, I'm sure, for another run.
When you go for broke, and thankfully nothing is broken. We talked about it was 60 G impact.
It was. It hurt. I'm still sore. I raced sports cars in Detroit last weekend. But, man, the Indy 500 means everything to me. And like I said, we were going for it. It was fun running up front. I know I can do it again. I just want another chance. But tonight it's all about Texas.
Well, tonight it is all about Texas. And to get things started, we'll head down to pit lane and start with our opening ceremonies here from Texas Motor Speedway.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remove your hats as the 2nd Battalion, 354th Regiment, 95th Division from Grand Prairie presents our nation's colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as Director of Texas Alliance Raceway Ministries, Dr. Roger Marsh, offers today's invocation.
Heavenly Father, it's with great anticipation that we gather at the Great American Speedway this evening to enjoy another round of exciting Verizon IndyCar racing. And Father, we thank you so much for the freedoms that we enjoy that allow us to be able to gather this way. We pray that you'd watch over those who protect our freedoms, both at home and abroad. And now, Father, as we turn our attention to this evening's race, we ask you to be with all the sponsors and fans. Thank you for these teams and competitors. Watch over them as the race unfolds. In Jesus' name I pray it. Amen.
It's now our pleasure to introduce Integra Records performing saxophonist Joseph Vincelli as he performs tonight's national anthem.
Teams and crews getting ready. Flight Museum. And good to see that vintage World War II aircraft, those aircraft flying over. And stirring rendition of the national anthem there on the saxophone. Perfectly clear blue sky here in Fort Worth, Texas. Welcome everyone. Along with myself and Townsend Bell, I welcome Paul Tracy to the booth. And Paul, you know how to go around this racetrack quickly. In fact, Paul Tracy has the fastest lap ever in an IndyCar around Texas Motor Speedway. Tell me about this 24-degree banking.
Well, it's tough. I mean, and this is going to be a tough race for sure. And, you know, watching the drivers tonight, I was always one of those guys that would try to read the demeanor of the guys. And one of the guys I see tonight that looks great, he was very calm on camera, Scott Dixon. And then you see guys like, you know, Power. He's always nervous before the start of an IndyCar race on an oval. So very contrasting styles. I think Dixon's going to be pretty tough. And the guys that can stay calm tonight and keep it in control, keep the tires under control, are going to have a good night.
I know one of the things that we've talked about as well over the weekend between the three of us is we've got experienced race car drivers here as you look at the Target Chip Ganassi team getting ready to go and Scott Dixon. Those are the experienced teams, but we've got teams here that don't have a lot of experience, and especially drivers. Can a rookie win at a racetrack like this, Townsend?
It's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen tonight. I think, in fact, what you're going to see is the same guys that were up front battling at the end of the Indy 500, Castroneves, Hunter Ray, Ed Carpenter. They're going to be up there, Marco Andretti. But like PT said, I'm looking at Scott Dixon. Man, he looked great in practice. So did Tony Kanaan. We've been looking for a breakout performance with the Ganassi drivers, and I really think we're going to see something special from those guys tonight.
And we talk about Will Power's aggressive driving style that got him to the championship lead. Can you drive aggressively like that at this racetrack?
Well, I mean, you don't want to, but there is going to be a lot of aggression. You're going to see some side-by-side racing, a lot of time next to each other, and some wheel-to-wheel banging. That always happens here in Texas.
Less than 5 minutes to the drop of the green from Texas Motor Speedway. You look at Joseph Newgarden getting ready. The 1.5-mile high banks of Texas Motor Speedway about to go green with the Verizon IndyCar Series. Well, team owners battle on the racetrack, but Chip Ganassi kind of accosting Roger Penske down there in the pits. It's all in good fun. More coming from Texas Motor Speedway when we come back. Thanks for watching the IndyCar Live on Welcome back to Texas Motor Speedway, where we'll head down to the front straightaway and get the command to start the evening's festivities.
Fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome to the command stage Connie Montoya and Adriana Inau.
Drivers, start your engines!
Always great to have the ladies give the command. Jim McElreath, Indy 500 Hall of Famer and a resident of nearby Arlington, Texas, was scheduled to be here to give the command. Fortunately, he could not be here with us tonight, but Jim, we wish you well. We know you're watching at home. Let's head down to pit road with Kevin Lee.
Ryan Hunter-Reay today is going to roll off in 12th position, and we're hoping that he continues to be what many have called the comeback kid. And that's because he had a disastrous weekend in Detroit in both races, but he said, you know, Jan, my car is only okay, but he knows the Andretti Autosport crew might be able to tune in by the time we get to 600K.
Helio Castroneves is not only one of last week's race winners at Belle Isle in Detroit, he's also last year's winner here at Texas. In fact, it was his 4th win at this track, a number he has yet to achieve at any other circuit. But of those 4 wins, his worst starting position was 6th. If he's going to go back-to-back tonight here in Texas, he's got a lot of ground to make up. Castroneves will start 14th. Robin?
Kelly, last year the fastest guy on every oval was Marco Andretti. He was the fastest at Indy, he was the fastest at Pocono. Right here in Texas, he led 57 laps. They pitted him out of sequence. Bottom line is his best finish was 4th. He's long overdue to win an oval race because he's been the fastest guy the last year. He's starting 17th tonight, not where he wanted to be, but he was quick in practice, and I guarantee you he will be at the front before 50 laps are gone.
You see the field lining up on the racetrack, but you know what? You too can be a part of the fastest seat in motorsports, so don't miss a chance to get in on Honda's fastest seat in sports sweepstakes. There you go, Christina Zaza. Christina, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
It's Brian Till in the booth. Are you having fun?
I'm having a blast.
Who's the guy in front of you?
Mario Andretti.
Mario who?
Mario Andretti.
That is absolutely awesome. Tell him to go faster, Christina.
Go faster, Mario.
24 degrees of banking around the outside. She's our lucky winner. You can log on to shophonda.com and you too can be in the fastest seat in motorsports. Field lining up. Here's how they'll start. Will Power on the pole. Joseph Newgarden with a great start. His best qualifying to date. On through the Mother's Polish starting grid. Ryan Hunter-Reay, your Indy 500 winner, back in 12th. Ryan Briscoe there alongside. Looking back in the field, we talk about Graham Rahal needing to find some light at the end of the tunnel. He'll start 21st. On board right now with Graham Rahal. We'll roll through the onboard shots that we'll give you tonight. The number 15 from Graham Rahal. The 25, the Snapple on board from Marco Andretti. Charlie Kimball in the number 83 from Chip Ganassi Racing. And then Ryan Briscoe in the NTT data entry from Ganassi Racing. James Hinchcliffe, another driver looking to turn his season around in the United Fiber and Data car. And then Simon Pagenaud in the Lucas Oil machine. And the number 10 car you can ride. Remember, Tony Kanaan has the Verizon streaming camera. To download it, just go to IndyCar 14 app, visit verizon.com/IndyCar, the App Store, or Google Play. Verizon and IndyCar, driving technology. Kanaan with a little bit of a different look in that gray number 10 tonight. We're used to seeing it in red. They're lined up down the back straightaway in 600 kilometers or 248 laps, about to get underway at Texas Motor Speedway. What's going through Will Power's mind?
Well, if I'm Will Power, I'm thinking about Joseph Newgarden. Young driver, third season on the outside. Last time he started on the front row at Long Beach, there was fireworks in turn one. Will Power gets a huge jump. Let's see if they throw the green.
Newgarden in the red, white, and blue. 67 right behind the number 12 of Will Power slots into place, and they run side by side, even 3 wide through turns 1 and 2.
Look at Marco Andretti up near the wall, 3 wide. That's where he is year after year. The first guy to go high and go brave. Tony Kanaan to the front.
Tony Kanaan in that gray number 10. He took over the number 10 from Chip Ganassi Racing from Dario Franchitti. On board with Marco Andretti looking to the inside. Kanaan in his 223rd consecutive IndyCar start.
Brian, Marco Andretti's passed, I don't know, maybe 8-10 cars already on the first lap, and he is flying on that high side.
Absolutely flying right up on the high line. He's up alongside Justin Wilson now, trying to make a move on him, and he's going to pinch him down to the low side and still up on the gray, just riding the rim ride.
Marco Andretti up 8 spots already. He'll come across the line, I think, in position 8.
There is no conservation for the tires on Marco Andretti's car right now. We talked about tire degradation, it being a factor, but Andretti pushing hard from the drop of the green.
Look at that steering lock that he has up there and the bumps going through the steering wheel. When he turns in here, look at how far the hands are bent over the steering wheel, and then you'll see that big bump right there.
He's driving the understeer, and I think one of the reasons you're going to see a lot of guys start with understeer in the stint is they want to take care of the rear tires. They want to force some push into the setup. Look at Munoz getting really racy. 3 wide with hinge to the high side.
I have a feeling right now that Marco has killed his front tires.
And he is slow on the backstretch, guys. There's something wrong with Marco Andretti.
Smoke out of the back and the number 25, just a light smoke.
Shut it off.
Oh, what a disappointment.
And you heard the tail end of the radio there. He said, "I think we're blowing up." And obviously now that appears to be the case.
And that has got to be the biggest disappointment you could ever have, having such a strong first couple of laps. It was a big fire now, so he's got to get that stopped before the whole car burns down and you create a bigger problem to get to the next race.
You're on fire. Stop at the pit entrance.
Caution flag is out, so that is a good oil fire coming out the back. Let's hope he gets out here quickly.
Fire pretty good.
You would think that there's a lot of oil if the engine let go in a big way and put a hole in the block. All that oil out from the hot exhaust and the turbochargers.
And you can see he's just disgusted. He didn't even look at the car. He just walked away.
Well, I mean, you got to be so disappointed. I mean, nobody did it like he did on the first few laps. He went 3 wide, passed a ton of cars in 1 and 2, and he was coming like a freight train.
He looked like you on the start of those Indy 500s, Townsend.
Well, and this is going to damage his points. We talk about the championship and how many points that Ryan Hunter-Reay lost with bad finish at Detroit. Andretti's going to be the first car out here. Only 4 laps did he complete. He was 5th in the championship point standings on the way in, and he's going to drop.
Now, he's probably on the same motor that he would have put in at Indianapolis right before qualifying, I think. So figure you got 500 miles carb day, maybe 700 miles on that engine. And Paul, these engines now are supposed to go, I think, 2,300 miles, 2,500 miles between rebuilds. So what does that say about the rest of the Hondas for tonight?
Yeah, it's very, very rare to have an engine failure. But, the frustrating point now is we're almost at the halfway point. The season is flying by, and you just cannot really afford to have any more DNFs, especially at this point.
Look at him go. That was beautiful through turns 1 and 2. Up behind Munoz. Munoz is thinking about hinge down low, and look at Marco. I'll take all that free air up high.
And you talk about the disappointment. One of the things that you had talked about earlier, Paul, was having a car that would run anywhere, and in those opening laps, his did.
Well, what's surprising about that run from Marco is I never saw him come close to that line in practice.
No,
so he's going up there.
Nobody has ventured over the second groove, and he was clearly way up in the third groove.
Tightening up.
Oh, look at the steering right there. So that thing locked up in the rear. There was something major going on. Look at the steering effort going in just to keep it from spinning.
I was just going to say, you could hear the motor start to tighten up.
Yeah, it was almost like it broke a crank or broke a rod, and then it was spitting all the oil out of the back of the car into the exhaust area, and that lit it up on fire.
So the crews will move the 25 out of the way. We've had our first caution of the evening. We've never had a full race go caution-free here at Texas Motor Speedway. We won't this evening. You're watching NBCSN's coverage of the IndyCar Series, brought to you by Battery Tender, proud sponsor of Graham Rahal. Become a part of the race at racetogive2014.com. By National Guard, become a citizen soldier. Learn more at nationalguard.com. And by Firestone, whatever you drive, drive a Firestone. We'll be back to more from Texas Motor Speedway right after this.
A little Texas flavor now back at the Texas Motor Speedway. Marco Andretti the first out in dramatic fashion, but boy, at the start you were flying.
Oh, yeah, thanks, man. Doesn't matter, though. I'm just absolutely gutted for really the whole Snapple crew. I mean, I wanted nothing more than to, deliver a win on their home turf. This one's frustrating, and this one really hurts for the championship, too.
All right, thank you, Marco, as we're going back to green.
We're going back to green, and it's a single file restart, something new for the ovals this year, and Will Power leads the field into turn 1.
Power looks really good. Kanana's just settling. Oh, he's making a move on the outside.
Looks like Joseph Newgarden in his red, white, and blue entry from Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing, content to hang with this, and they are wheel to wheel. Literally, Ed Carpenter in the green and white number 20 involved as well.
And look at Newgarden looking high, trying to follow Marco Andretti's lead from the start.
We never really saw any of this type of racing, this pack racing that we had in years past. In practice, everybody was pretty spread out, but man, it's incredible racing tonight.
Now remember, they're added downforce for this race this year, so we're seeing the fruits of that rule change here. A little more grip for all the cars, but as the tires start to degrade, we'll see them stretch out, I think. Good cars will go to the front.
And this is what I was talking about, Townsend. Tony is going to try to pinch him on the bottom and keep him on the white line and make him use his tires up. As long as he can hang there, at some point that's going to overuse Will Power's front tires.
And here's that other Ganassi car looking at the inside of Ed Carpenter up the inside. Last night in final practice, nobody was stronger than Scott Dixon in practice.
Well, and Scott Dixon needs to find victory lane. He has more fast laps in the races this year than any other driver. He just hasn't had the finishes that he wanted. You see the blue and white 27 of James Hinchcliffe. He is in exactly the same position. He needs finishes. He's third on average qualifying positions, but just has not had the finishes he needs.
Looking further back, that's Juan Pablo Montoya, who took the option to pit under yellow, going a little bit off strategy. He's the fourth car in your frame, that Verizon car, and he's looking to make up some spots now on track after taking fuel and fresh tires.
The 17 of Sebastian Saavedra, the red and yellow car up on the high side. Drivers beginning to really kind of feel this racetrack out and get an idea of where they can run and where they can race. Just in front of Saavedra is the number 8 you ride on board right now in the NTT data machine, looking out the back, and Saavedra trying to get a bit of a draft down the front straight.
Now that it's settled in a little bit, everybody's settled down. They've gotten through the start. They've gotten all through the excitement. You're going to see now guys are starting to shift the gears, try to save some fuel, conserve their tires. They got to go 45 laps on these set of tires, so you got to make it last to the end.
You got to make it last, and you have to be so tuned into the balance. I mean, look, we're already starting to see that separation, and the driving and the adjustments come into play. It's a finesse game to walk that tightrope all the way around here. And like you said, Paul, you got to read your car, you got to read your tires so that you're set up for later in this race.
And just behind Dixon, Ryan Hunter-Reay, after winning the Indy 500, he really struggled in Detroit, but he has moved up 6 positions in the early going. He qualified 12th, not at all where he wanted to be, but he seems to be moving forward. Jan?
And this is better than he predicted. He told me that my car wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as others. That wasn't necessarily a very confident coming into the race. But again, if he can kind of maintain this position, work with the crew, Townsend and Paul, that's just what you're talking about. These cars are going to change a lot from now when there's some truck rubber on the track till later on. It's going to cool off, and it's going to be a chasing the car all night.
And here comes Scott Dixon, went around the high side.
Okay, copy that. Keep working your tools there.
Working your tools, the anti-sway bars, the weight jacker in the car.
I picked up, I think it was either big oversteer or big understeer. I'm guessing big oversteer. Was that Ed Carpenter perhaps on the radio? But Scott Dixon is charging to the front right now. He's working the high side through 3 and 4, coming up on Newgarden. He's closing fast.
And you can see, Townsend, that he's opening up the line. He's running a groove higher than the 3 cars in front of him, which is not going to use the tires as hard. You can see he's just a lane up, and that's carrying more speed, and you can see him pull up on Newgarden coming down the back straightaway.
Now Elio Castroneva is in the number 3 down on the inside. It's James Hinchcliffe that you ride with. You saw the margin between the two, which is not very much of a margin at all. It's hard to time cars around this racetrack, but Hinchcliffe trying to run that high line and just not getting it done. But Jan pointed something out. They've run, they've practiced, they qualified in the heat of the day. The racetrack now is in shade, and things are going to change.
Now let's watch the telemetry here with Hinchcliffe. We got our Firestone telemetry in the upper right-hand corner. I'm watching the throttle position. This is not easy flat. This is nowhere near flat in race trim. Hinch makes an adjustment to his anti-roll bar. He's back to about half throttle, just working the tires. The Andretti cars don't seem very strong at the start of the stint to me. Marco obviously went big, rode around the high side, but once they've settled in here, I'm watching for the second half of this stint. Are they working too much understeer at the beginning, or is it set themselves up perfectly for the end of the stint? We're going to find out.
Townsend, this is a completely different game than when you and I used to drive here. We used to go out and bury our foot on the throttle stop until you came into pit, and now these guys are driving the wheels off these cars. They're lifting, the cars are sliding, the back end's wanting to come out, and it's a real race.
Look at Scott Dixon, gone around Joseph Newgarden, and he's currently in third. He's going to try to draft his way up there to his teammate Kanan. Those Ganassi boys looking really strong early on.
And you look at Joseph Newgarden trying to hold on to the back of Scott Dixon. Here's a young man who has qualified well, has been taken out of the lead at Long Beach, taken out close to the start by Will Power at Detroit. This Sarah Fisher Hartman team has been doing so well, they just don't have the results. One here would be huge, Kelly.
Yeah, and I talked to Joseph about that. He said, yeah, it's really been tough because they don't feel like they've been doing anything wrong. Things just haven't gone their way. So he said they're just going to keep plugging away, and they know that their time will come. Joseph right now complaining of a little bit of understeer in the car, but the team just telling him, just keep going. This track is going to come to us. It needs to get rubbered in a little bit. And they're telling him, don't worry about Ed Carpenter behind you. He's struggling with his front end.
Heard a crew member say lap 25, halfway. We thought 45 on the low side, maybe 50 on the high side, as far as the distance that you could go before you needed to fuel.
Most guys were telling me about 50 laps on the stint, but as Jan pointed out earlier, you know, you could be tire limited. Some of these guys, the balance might go off so bad, so aggressively, that they're going to have to come in for tires before they actually need fuel.
And right now, for Will, it's clean sailing, clear air. Track position is going to be key tonight. He's got a nice open track. He's conserving his tires. The other guys that are back there racing each other are using their tires harder. Will's just got a nice clean road ahead of him.
It's the sixth race that Will Power has led so far this season. He would like nothing better than to add another victory to his resume. We'll find out what he can do when we come back to Texas.
Yeah.
I'll be like a spring chicken when I get back. Don't worry.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
500. I was hoping for more on that run. I'm thinking the weather conditions are going to not be ideal for when I can run again because I have to head to Charlotte by 3 o'clock.
Good job,
Thank
man.
you.
How was it?
It's a thrill of a lifetime.
It's Tomorrow on NBC, spend 36 hours with NASCAR legend Kurt Busch as we chronicle his attempt at the double from his rookie start at the Indy 500 through the finish of NASCAR's Coca-Cola 600. Kurt Busch 36 tomorrow, 4:30 on NBC. Now, Kurt Busch and this man, Juan Pablo Montoya, have certainly done some duels around this racetrack. Montoya, 14 NASCAR Cup starts here at Texas Motor Speedway, and I guarantee you he and Kurt Busch had some good runs, and he is on a tear, but he did do that pit stop during the first full course caution. For more on JPM, let's go to Kelly.
Well, Brian, as you said, Juan Pablo Montoya came in under that first caution. It wasn't necessarily a strategy play. It was actually because the team thought he might have a right rear tire going down, but nonetheless, he has been on the move since getting that fresh rubber. He talked about those NASCAR starts, 14 and all. He said there is actually a little bit that transfers over from the stock car racing. However, they run different lines, and he said his breaking point for NASCAR, he's flat out here in an IndyCar. He said it's a lot of fun at this track.
Just a lot to get used to again. I mean, he has the experience doing it, but you got to learn the trust and the faith again, right?
Well, for sure, but I talked to Juan yesterday down in the pit lane, and he said, I know a couple tricks around this place. I've done a lot of laps, and you know, he's done the most races of anybody here. As you see, he's passing his teammate Castroneves. He's got 500-mile race after 500-mile race here, more than anybody, and he's been all over every bit of this racetrack, Townsend.
He looks fantastic right now. Now, granted, as you said, Brian, he did pit on lap 8, but the other guys only had one lap of green flag running before Marco blew up there. So I'd have to say Montoya's car, apples to apples, looks awfully strong right now.
I think right now, at this point in the run, he is the fastest car on the track right now.
And look at this kid, the Russian, Mikhail Aloshin, going to the high side, making a move on Munoz.
Aloshin was impressive in qualifying. Let's take a look at our Firestone biggest movers to this point. Ryan Hunter-Reay, who started 12th, is up to 7th, and he needs that good finish. Dixon, 7th to 3rd, and Castroneves, 14th to 10th. We are a long, long way away from checkered flags.
And guys, our leader, Will Power, has already come up on lap traffic. He's got Graham Rahal in his sights as we watch Briscoe pull away. There's Will Power all the way to the back of the field. We're only 40 laps into this. Graham Rahal running around at about 198. Will Power's been turning laps in the 203, 205, 206 range. Here he goes to the inside.
And just not another good night for Graham. We talked to him yesterday, and he said he was pretty happy with his car. They lost the handle in qualifying, and something has gone wrong tonight because he's certainly not handling tonight, and it's going to be another struggle tonight for him.
And they said that they were working on dampers. Remember, he ran so well here, almost won it a couple of years ago, but
you can see, Brian, how busy his hands are. It's
very busy.
It's just the hands are, when the hands are calm, the car's calm, and when they're busy, the car is busy. So
how do you keep the frustration from getting the best of you and getting you talked into a mistake on
Yes, hit this lap, hit this lap.
That's the hard part. Cars are starting to pit now. The hard part is not losing your cool and making a mistake, because one little small mistake here and you're in the fence.
Looks like Hinch is going to come to... I believe that's Hinch's engineer asking if he wants to take out front wing, which tells me he's loose, and he's not on the apron.
Really losing time now.
Yeah, cars are streaming by.
One more time around.
And he didn't pit, and you wonder if that was a miscommunication. They just didn't make the decision in time because several cars got by, and if the car is loose, you certainly don't want to stay on the racetrack.
I did not hear Hinch respond. I wonder if he's having a radio issue there when they asked him about front wing adjustment.
And he really doesn't look, oh, here he comes now, but he didn't look terribly loose. There wasn't any corrections in the steering wheel. I just think that he's just lost total grip, and he just can't keep it flat.
With too much front wing in, it's going to pin that nose, and that's going to be a problem. Hinchcliffe now heads to pit road.
He actually did want to come in the last time around. The communication is fine. He radioed in, sorry guys, I missed it. I'll have to go around one more time. But the car has been a handful early on. Hinch told me before the race that it wasn't that good for any of the Andretti cars yesterday, so they took a big swing at it, got it a little bit better in practice last night. Let's watch and see what they do with that front wing here in this one. Looks like one crank, one turn to try to help out James Hinchcliffe, and he's back out. Off sequence, we're still probably 15 laps away from most of the others pitting.
You just kind of gave me a look, Paul, like, man, that wasn't a big change.
I mean, one little turn of wing for how slow that he was, you know, how fast the other cars were passing him. It didn't look like it was a big swing at the handling to try to correct the problem.
Meanwhile, guys, I've been watching Will Power. He's been carving up lap traffic like nobody else. The Ganassi cars still haven't gotten around Graham Rahal yet, and Will Power looks incredibly strong, and this is the kind of form that it's going to take to get him his first championship. And look at Andretti really struggling tonight.
You think he's figured out the ovals, Townsend?
Man, Fontana last year, he nailed it.
Will Power, we watched him in qualifying, and it was so impressive. You talk about smooth hands and still hands. They very much were, Paul. And tonight, it looks like the balance of the car has remained as Power begins to eat up this field. Moving forward, now slipping past Sebastian Saavedra, who's shown back in 17th. So Power continues his march, not only on the racetrack, but in the championships. He came in 2014 and said, I want to do nothing but win races. If I do that, I'll win the championship. Will he win here tonight?
Back at Texas Motor Speedway, where Will Power has been in control from the start. Simon Pagenaud just made a pit stop here with 52 laps complete, keeping an eye on tire wear so far. So far, so good. And one of the things to keep an eye on as we see Ed Carpenter come down pit lane, Will Power said it drops off after about 15 laps, but then it stabilizes. And for Power, certainly it's holding up. He's still running pretty good lap times, guys.
The stabilization is good for Will Power. He's turning laps well over 200 miles an hour, where many other competitors are a good 5, 6, even 7 miles an hour off the pace. Interesting, though, when Simon Pagenaud pitted, I watched a wing adjustment. They actually added front wing to Simon Pagenaud's car, the number 77.
An open entry for Helio Castroneves, who comes in with 53 complete, working on lap 54. Let's see if they do anything up front. Roger Penske had said early that they were going to make a front wing adjustment, but they do not. There's Tony Kanaan in, Jan.
And he's finishing up his stop. They take and add some wing to the front. So that means that Tony Kanaan had a little bit of a push. Kelly?
Joseph Newgarden comes in. He was asking for a wing adjustment and some tire pressure adjustment. A quick stop for Joseph Newgarden.
Looked like they added front wing to Newgarden's car as well. A turn to the right. That would be adding wing as Bourdais is in. So is Dixon.
We're good. Clear behind. Well clear behind.
Watching Mikhail Loshin stop at the same time we see Dixon coming in. We're looking over the shoulder to keep an eye on Dixon. Loshin going with sticker tires, but they have a problem on the left rear. So lost time for the number 7 as Dixon, and at the moment we see Wilson leaving pit road.
it will be frantic all night long on pit road at 25, 26 seconds per lap. You can lose a lap to a lap and a half if you're pitting under green. Power having a hard time getting the car slowed down. The black and white number 12 saw a little bit of lockup as the leader now comes to pit road.
Will Power said after he won at Fontana last year, it felt like the monkey was off his back and he's conquered the ovals. Power is in, and Briscoe, about 3 stalls, is also in front of him. Watching Power, as you can imagine, no changes for that car. It's a great pit stop for Power. Now he's going to race Briscoe off pit road. Briscoe gets out ahead of him. Great stop for the Ganassi guys and NTT data.
A very good stop for the Chip Ganassi crew as now you look at the number 2, Juan Pablo Montoya, in the red and white car, being passed by Ed Carpenter down on the inside. Dixon right there as well.
And that's so illustrative with the difference in brand new fresh rubber versus Montoya, who is a little bit much deeper into his stint there. It's a massive difference. It's going to be fascinating to see where everybody cycles out here after these stops.
It's exactly what we were talking about on the pre-race show. It's going to be the comers and goers. When you make that last stop and how good your tires are for the last stint, you can either be falling behind or coming through the pack like crazy.
Munoz is in, and ahead of him comes Takuma Sato. A little bit slower for Carlos Munoz, who said yesterday, this might be the toughest place I've ever been. He's been on ovals before, but nothing like this. Takuma Sato making his second stop. They again were planning on adding front wing this time.
It is absolutely torrid, and the pit stop strategies are completely different, and I think a lot of them are based on how the handling is going away. Carlos Munoz was all the way up to second when he came in. We know Montoya, though, last pitted on lap 8. It's lap 59 right now. You would expect to see Montoya on pit road very soon.
Well, based on the mileage we know these guys can get, it's about 50 to 55 laps, depending on how lean they are, and sure enough, 52 laps into that stint, Montoya's in for fuel.
Reset your weight jacker.
Say reset the weight jacker.
Correct. So if he's been making adjustments, which I'm sure he has during the race, he's going to zero those out so that when he gets fresh tires, that he's at the start of that weight jacker window.
3, 2, 1. Hit your mark.
Juan Pablo Montoya hits his marks. They said they were going to give him a tire pressure adjustment. Other than that, Juan Pablo's been pretty quiet on the radio. You got to imagine he's pretty happy with his car. As many spots as he made up after that early pit stop. Looked like a clean stop here for the Penske team.
And as Montoya cycles in, Power cycles back to the front. Will Power leading again here at Texas.
And so far, it looks like the guys that really gained something on those stops were Ed Carpenter and Simon Pagenaud. Tony Kanaan also did really well, back up to second. Scott Dixon down in 5th. So those in and out laps, Paul, on the apron here at Texas are everything under a green race.
Because Will Power had about a 8 or 9 second lead on Kanaan when they came into the pits, and whatever happened, whether he got held up behind Briscoe on the warm-up lane, but that gap now is down to 5 seconds to Kanaan, so he closed the gap by quite a bit.
Well, don't forget we saw the lockup from Will Power come into pit lane, but that would have been because he was super aggressive. I think one of the things he's got to be careful of, he's got the strongest car, he's got this track figured out. We saw that on that first stint. Don't make the mistake of a pit speed violation by coming in too hot.
Those are those little small mistakes that you see Will Power make with a lot of frequency. He's probably, lost probably half a dozen races with like little small mistakes, like little dumb mistakes like that. You come in, you lock a tire, you speed through the pit lane, and then you get a penalty.
But it's that aggression that's also led to so many wins. So, where do you draw the line?
I mean, perfect case scenario is the last stop at Indy. He blew into the pits probably going 130 miles an hour and completely missed the blend line. So those are the little mistakes that you can't make.
One more time, Scott Dixon has posted the fastest lap of the race, but the guy cannot get a break. He hasn't started where he's needed to this year, but incredibly quick in race trim. But I think these days in the IndyCar series, you need to start a little further up front because the competition is so absolutely intense, I should say. But Scott Dixon showing one more time how quick he can be in that number 9 Ganassi car.
And there we see Scott Dixon, and I never worry about this guy anymore. Last year's champion, and it's always around mid-season, at least the last couple years, that he really gets it going. And one thing he does better than everybody is he minimizes his bad days. If Scott Dixon has a bad day, he's usually 4th, 5th, 6th, something like that. He's putting points on the board even when things aren't fully optimized.
And how about this guy? How would you like to see a showdown at the end of the race between Will Power and Simon Pagenaud, who's quietly slid his way up into 3rd place, and he's having a good run.
When you look at Simon Pagenaud, it took him 3 years to win in the IndyCar Series, and Paul, you and I talked about it. You've got to do that homework. You've got to do that time. You've got to get that experience. Pagenaud seems to now have it, and perhaps he's a little more calm driver than Will Power is. He doesn't make those same mistakes.
Well, he's got tons and tons of experience. When you look at all the experience he has at Le Mans and doing long stints, it's just this series is so tough to win in, and the level of competition is so high. I mean, it just takes a long time to get it figured out.
Just a couple of laps ago, inside Kimball, 3 wide here at Texas. It's Tony Kanaan on the outside, Simon Pagenaud on the inside, and Charlie Kimball's got to be going, ooh, just go on, guys. How skinny can I make this car? If you've just joined us, Marco Andretti is out. He was the reason for the first and only full course caution that we've had to date. On about lap 3, his engine expired, and that brought out the full course caution. It also brought out a little change in strategy, but we think that Juan Pablo Montoya pitted not just because he wanted fresh tires, but because they perhaps had a tire going down. So he was off strategy with that early stop to take care of a potential problem that he may have had, but it has really mixed things up, and we've seen different strategies already this evening on just how long teams can go and keep the balance on their cars as you watch Mikhail Aloshin in the red, white, and blue number 7 running very close with Juan Pablo Montoya in the red and white number 2. Montoya back to 9th. And the next car in his sights is the 98 of Hawksworth, another one of the rookies in the field. And Hawksworth has been impressive in a couple of races, especially the Indy GP, but this 1.5 mile oval is something different.
You know, something I was looking at just on those onboards, look at the difference in sort of shock and vibration through the steering wheel. On the left is Simon Pagenaud, on the right is Tony Kanaan. And you can really see Kanaan's got a higher speed vibration, and I think he runs a much stiffer setup on front spring and roll bar than what Pagenaud does. Completely different approach, and I know Kanaan loves a really stiff platform so that he doesn't have big wiggles and big surprises in the balance.
You can also see with Kanaan's car, there's just a little bit more steering input. And you see in the center of the corner, he has his hands turned over a little bit more than Simon, so that will wear out the front tires a little bit quicker.
Simon Pagenaud, Tony Kanaan showing how to do it here at Texas Motor Speedway. A great crowd on hand, enduring the heat, the humidity, but they're watching the Verizon IndyCar Series, and so are you. Tomorrow, F1 heads to Montreal and Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. It is a great facility on the island just there in Montreal. It's the Formula One Canadian Grand Prix. Tomorrow, 2 Eastern, live on NBC. Mercedes on the pole again in Formula One. You're not surprised at, are you?
That car looks so sweet to drive. It's dominant this year. But what a battle between both drivers. I mean, Rosberg, Hamilton, top of their game, going at it. Reminds me a lot of Senna and Prost back in the day.
And here we have Power. This is really the first time now that he's come up on some heavy traffic. He seems to be struggling a little bit with that. Kanaan is closing in on him now. He's down to 1 second. So this is the point of the race where now you're going to get heavier traffic. And if your car's working.
Paul, that last lap, 200 miles an hour, even for Will Power. Tony Kanaan at 205. TK is coming. Robin, what's going on down there?
Well, I was talking to Power today, and I call him Eeyore because the sky's always falling, even though he's the fastest guy on the track. And he said, you know what? He said, when I'm in clean air, I think I can handle everybody. But he said, I don't think I'm that good in traffic. And he said, I think the two Ganassi cars are the two guys to beat. Now, you guys are all drivers. You know how you guys lie all the time to the media, but I'd say he might be telling the truth this time, because as dominant as he was early, TK's reeling him in this big traffic jam.
And I think that's what Tony needs. Tony needs the traffic. Right at the beginning of the race when they were racing hard, Tony was there, but as things opened up, Will was able to sneak away. But I think that number 10 car may be one of the best cars in the field tonight, especially in traffic.
And it's interesting. Briscoe and Power left the pits together neck and neck, and Briscoe is still in front of Power, and which is a teammate situation. He's trying to hold off Power as Kanaan is chasing him down.
The drivers flying around this racetrack, and if you want to drive or ride, I should say, you don't get to drive, but you can ride in the Verizon IndyCar Series in the Honda's fastest seat in sports sweepstakes. Just go to shophonda.com to sign up. Enter for your chance to lead the start of a Verizon IndyCar Series race. And no purchase is necessary.
Hinchcliffe, Brian, going to pit lane again. Last pitted on lap 40, so he's only doing 40 laps before he needs tires. So really struggling. Not going to win the race tonight, pitting that many times.
And after he came in the last time he radioed in, how were the tire pressures? He was really hoping there was a big problem with those tires. They said, no, they were fine. But we made a little bit of an adjustment, and we hope that works. They're coming in again. This is still a little bit early. He came in, I think, around lap 40 the last time, so it's still short of a full stint. But I'm sure he felt like, I've got to come in here and try something. 44 was the last time, so this is about 15 laps short of a full stint, and Hinchcliffe is back out.
And he is so frustrated. You look through his qualifying for the year, he's got 5 front row starts, but only 1 top 5 finish. James Hinchcliffe needs to find some good luck, and right now he's not having any of it. This man, Will Power, is spectacular out front.
Well, these guys are definitely earning their money tonight. What do you think, Townsend, with how bad the handling is going off? I'm amazed that there hasn't been a yellow.
I was thinking the same thing. I keep waiting for it to happen, but it hasn't come. Will Power stabilized a bit on pace. He's about 204 right now. TK at a 202 mile an hour lap on that last lap. And he's got Ed Carpenter and Simon Pagenaud. Ed's gotten around Simon, and Dixon lurking behind. So it's interesting to see. They've got to continue to work traffic. Will Power's got to try to make moves here.
And one of the cars that's actually a surprise here, like I said earlier, is Briscoe left the pits in front of Power. He's still sitting out in front, trying to hang on to the lead lap.
Very good point. If he can get a yellow in a timely fashion, he can get back around to the back of the field. They would pick up the leader, but Briscoe does seem to have a very good car underneath him.
And there'll be 2 dynamics working there. It's going to be Briscoe fighting to stay on the lead lap, and at the same time, as hard as he fights, it's going to help Tony Kanaan, as you said earlier.
Oh, absolutely. As teammates, it's definitely going to help. Here's Helio, and here comes the crazy Russian. He's making a move. Look at the move he's making on the outside on Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Michaela Loshin in the number 7. We spoke at the beginning of the program about him being the only Russian driver to ever run at the Indianapolis 500 and in the Verizon IndyCar Series. His qualifying run was horrifying to us, even sitting here in the booth. But he said, hey, I had fun in qualifying. I think I have a good race car.
We'll be fine here. Nice and steady. Ward down.
Ed Carpenter has decided to make an early stop because they believe they have a blistered tire.
Tires. We made a tire pressure adjustment.
Keeping an eye, he had reported that the car was starting to get loose. That was a 7.5 second stop. Hunter-Reay's coming in as well for his service. So lots of people diving in early, but for Carpenter, it was a case where he had a blistered tire. Now the work continues with Ryan Hunter-Reay, and it looks like they may have lost a wheel nut briefly on the right front, pulling Hunter-Reay.
Wheel 2, wheel 2.
These guys are pitting earlier than they want to. Only about 40 laps into that stint for Carpenter and Hunter Ray.
You get the 10 sets of tires for the weekend, and I know they've used them in practice and qualifying. At the rate they're going through them, are they going to have enough fresh rubber?
Well, if you keep coming in like Hinchtown, you're going to run out of rubber before the race. So,
and there goes Will Power, knowing he's got to make a move to stay ahead of TK. He puts Briscoe a lap down. Now he's working Sebastian Bourdais on the high side through 3 and 4.
Now there are 11 cars on the lead lap. Jack Hawksworth, the next car in front. Hawksworth being shown down a lap, about to go down the second time. So now Hawksworth down 2 laps in the green and black 98.
And everybody's going to be watching the leader, Will Power. When does he need to pit? His last pit came at lap 57. So he's got another, maybe 10, 15 laps if he's going to run that thing through its full fuel run. We'll see how the tires hang on.
And Townsend, it just seems like as we watch Power here, he's starting to pull away again from Tony Kanaan. It just seems like his car does not use the tires as hard. It's just better on the long run than the other guys.
And here we see Bourdais on pit lane.
Sebastian Bourdais has been complaining of massive understeer. They have been behind the 8 ball since they arrived here, and he said there's simply not enough time or tires to make the adjustments, but the team is happy with the progress they've made. Looked to be a bit of a slower stop there, Kevin.
Takuma Sato has the very first pit stall because he won the pole in the second race at Detroit. This is his 3rd stop. He came under that first caution. They have not been real happy with the handling in the car. They're going to make another front wing adjustment. Sato is back out.
All the way out, clear out.
And that last pit stall is a big advantage on pit exit on the way in. It seems like an eternity before you ever get there. Sato out and Pagenaud back in.
Great run so far for Simon Pagenaud. He's been running in the top 3, 4th right now as he pits. The car was a handful last night in the final practice. He was using words as we see Scott Dixon making his stop. Dixon is back out. But Pagenaud was very happy with the changes they made. They went back to what they had in the first practice session. You see a slight front wing adjustment there, a little bit late on the outside rear, but Pagenaud has a pretty good car here tonight after struggling last night.
And Kevin, to give you just a rundown on Scott Dixon, I did not see any front wing change for Scott Dixon. And then also giving a summary for Ed Carpenter. He thought that he was having a blistered tire. The team checked. In fact, there was no problem, so it just felt like it as we watch Aloshin now, currently 4th.
And what a run by this guy. I mean, here's a guy who's never seen this place, probably never been to Texas in his life. You think he would ever run like this, Townsend?
Absolutely fearless. As you said, Brian, in qualifying, big moment, never lifted. But you know what? This place can bite you. You've got to respect it. So we'll keep an eye on him all night long, but he's been very impressive. Guys, here's the thing about Texas. All these green flag stops, if a yellow comes down, 6 are a lap ahead of the rest of the field. So it's going to be really interesting to see if a yellow does come out. A lot of guys can be hung out here. Kelly?
Last time Joseph Newgarden was in, they gave him tire pressure and front wing adjustment. He asked for even more. Now he started 4th. Was Kevin?
Front wing change for Elio Castroneves. Last time in, which was on lap 54, he was a little bit too close to the wall, so they warned him, make sure you hit your marks. This time, a very smooth stop for the 3 team.
The stops are smooth, but I'm looking at laps between pit stops, and I've seen 44 for Simon Pagenaud, and I believe 44 or 45 for Dixon. So they're not going to a full tank. They're stopping for tires before they need to stop for fuel.
You're right, absolutely right, except this guy right here. And where he's so strong is at the end of the stint, his lap times are on a different level.
Now on his last stop, they had a little bit of a miscue on the outside rear. Now this looks nice and solid. That's the kind of stuff they were looking for. 7.2. He is definitely moving forward.
And we talked about the guys that it's taken them a couple of years to figure out the ovals. This is his 2nd race on an oval, and he's got it figured out. This guy's like a Nigel Mansell. He showed up in 93 and won right off the bat.
Well, a lot of those young guys living in the garage or the basement on a simulator. Here comes our leader to pit lane.
Reset your bars here if you want to. Reset your bars.
So Will Power comes to pit road. So does Tony Kanaan.
There's Kanaan in. We heard Tim Cindric just a moment ago telling Will Power to reset his bars. There we see Power at the bottom of the screen. He has the more advantageous pit position. Kanaan came in earlier. He gets out a little bit earlier, but easily Will Power is going to beat him back out. Power he's a very flawless car right now. Not many changes anticipated at this point. Carlos Munoz is coming down pit lane as well. Munoz has had a strong race. This is an impressive run for the rookie. Yes, he's finished 2nd and 4th in the Indianapolis 500 and ran up front last year in Montana in a fill-in role. Well, this is an entirely different animal here. Great experience for the young Colombian.
Juan Pablo Montoya down on the apron. He heads to pit road and locks up a brake on the way in. Did he get enough speed off?
Board. 3, 2, 1. Hit your mark.
Montoya hits his marks here in Team Penske pit. He has been the fastest guy on the track. The guys from his pit box keep telling him, keep pushing. You're faster than everyone ahead of you. He had re-inherited the lead. And now here comes Justin Wilson, who won this race back in 2012. He is also asking for a little bit more front wing. He said that he was just going to try to survive these first 2 stints, let everything settle down, let this track get rubbered in and get that NASCAR truck rubber off. Justin Wilson with some fresh rubber back off pit road.
Justin Wilson, this is his best qualifying position ever here at Texas Motor Speedway. That bodes well.
And it's going to be interesting to watch because Wilson's the guy that went the furthest on that second stint. I calculate about 49 laps that he went. Kanaan went 47. A lot of the other guys like Power, Newgarden, 44, 43 laps on tires.
Ed Carpenter now cycles to the front as pit stops happening at a very rapid pace. So are the laps. If you enjoy world-class tennis, tomorrow morning it's the French Open men's final as Rafael Nadal attempts to win an unprecedented 9th title at Roland Garros. Standing in his way, Novak Djokovic, attempting to complete a career Grand Slam. The French Open tomorrow. Make sure you catch it. Djokovic has been spectacular, and Nadal obviously knows how to get the job done. So great tennis coming your way tomorrow. You got Formula One, you've got IndyCars tonight in Texas.
And you got 3 red, white, and blue cars
all running together. The battle of the red, white, and blues in Texas.
I know we're in Texas, and I appreciate the respect from the Russian, but man, it's tough for these guys on the racetrack and on pit lane with those red, white, and blue fire suits with their crew members.
To Lotion, the lead car in that group, and then the 14 of Takuma Sato, and then just zipping around the high side. Impressive stuff, and it seems like there's such give and take back and forth. One guy seems fast, 5 laps later, he's lost the handle on it, somebody else gets by.
Well, you really have to keep track of how many laps are on the tires. You know, Ed Carpenter, one of the first guys currently leading, but he pit on lap 89, so he's on a lot older rubber now, where you've got a guy like Kanan or Power with 10 laps fresher tires, and it's going to play out here shortly as those guys catch up to Carpenter.
Saw Takuma Sato drop out of that battle, but Ryan Briscoe having a hard time getting around Aloshin, and then just in front of him, the bright yellow, the number 28 of Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Ryan Hunter-Reay, currently the guy flying the flag for Andretti. The rest of the guys have really been struggling tonight, but Ryan really disciplined in practice last night, PT. I just saw him working pounded laps, trying to find an optimal balance for a long run.
You know, one of the things that I saw with him is that even after qualifying was over, he was out in the pit lane probably 30 minutes after the practice was over, qualifying, just to talk to Marco about how his car was. So the guy is disciplined, dedicated to what he's doing. Not having a great night tonight, but I'll guarantee he'll bring home the points.
Carlos Huertas just in and now back out. Rookie learning about these ovals, and you think about the rookies here, not only are they learning about this 1.5-mile oval, but they're learning about night racing as well.
And look at that statistic, Brian. That is so impressive for a rookie. One of 3 drivers to complete every lap. No mistakes out of this guy. That is such a critical platform for confidence for the races the rest of the season. Hinchcliffe back on pit lane.
Lap 115, and Hinchcliffe not having a good night at all as he rolls down to his pit stall.
Yeah, once again, he can't go the entire stint. 85 was the last time he was in a really interesting exchange just a moment ago when they were talking about what they might want to do. He said, I just can't hang on with the tires. The degradation is just too much right now, and I'm afraid if you go one way, I'm not going to be able to turn it. If you go the other way, I'm going to be around and in the wall too. So he's just trying to hang on to get to the end of this one.
I don't understand. I thought that they were going to say we're going to shut it off.
I thought that's what they said as well. Perhaps the radio's not working well. They said just shut it off.
Oh, shutter off, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps they've got a heating issue, and so they're pulling the shutter off. Man, that could be easily misinterpreted all of a sudden.
I thought he said shut her off.
And I don't think he realizes how big the degradation is for everybody else. I mean, when you had Power running down at 200, 202, he's really running about the same. I think he's just throwing in the towel on it, Townsend.
Well, but he's gone from, I mean, man, he pitted on lap 40, then 82, 42 laps, and that stint was in the 30s, so he's not happy out there.
Not heading the right direction at all. Jan?
Matt Barnes does the engineering for Ed Carpenter, and he called on the radio, thought he had a blistered tire, but the tires you think are okay?
Yeah, they just go off really bad here. I think it's the same for everybody. We might have had a set that had a bit of vibration, so we came in a little earlier than we wanted, but it's not a bad way to go.
Obviously, you're out front now, but on the different pit strategy, are you comfortable with your cycle right now?
Yeah, I think we look good right now. We're in a good spot. Tim Broyles has us in a good place in the strategy, so I think we're going to be all right.
All right, thank you, Matt.
And I'm actually surprised that with the fresher tires, Townsend, that Will hasn't been able to chase these guys down on older tires.
I agree. You know, I wonder if Will is starting to lean out, save a little bit of fuel, because where Ed pitted, if it stayed green, I believe he'd have to make one extra stop to make it to the end, where Ed pitted about, I don't know, 15 laps later than Carpenter did. Sorry, Will Power did. Yellow's out.
Yellow.
And it came just in time for Ryan Hunter-Reay.
2 cars in the wall in turn 4, up high. That's Sebastian Bourdais.
Damage to the left front for Bourdais as he slides down to the apron.
And there's somebody else further up in the fence. It's a red and white. Is that...
Might be Montoya.
I was going to say 19.
It's Justin Wilson. He will not find his second victory.
Guys, we are done for the day. I'm sorry. Very, very light damage on it now.
So the right front damage and right rear to Justin Wilson. Saavedra was in pit lane when the yellow came out, so he can head back out onto the racetrack. For Ryan Hunter-Reay, Ed Carpenter being shown the leader was right behind him, about to put him a lap down, so that was good news for Ryan Hunter-Reay. He'll stay on the lead lap, but bad news for these 2 drivers. Don't know what happened just yet. Damage to the left front of Bourdais, the right side of Justin Wilson's Dale Coyne entry.
Looking at the skid marks from Sebastian Bourdais, it looks like he was up in the wall. If I follow those skid marks all the way back here, it wouldn't surprise me if he spun and did a 180 and pancaked the fence.
On board.
Oh, that was
up there in front of you. Just stay low, stay low, stay low. Get through there.
And collected Sebastian Bourdais.
He's down low, and it just
it's
gets
hard
away.
to tell whether they had contact and just, you know, touched each other in the corner.
It almost looked like Wilson got squeezed down below the white line and lost it. If we can go back to the previous replay, and we can see Wilson really low inside of Bourdais. We've got another angle here, but that's later in the incident. I think the first angle probably is the most illustrative.
That was from on board with Tony Kanaan. You saw the two up ahead of him, but you know, Justin Wilson.
A little bit of a limp, it seems like. He's mad.
He's not happy.
He's mad.
We'll certainly find out when we interview him what happened.
The crews will go to work and get the cars removed. We're under caution for the second time. The first was for the problem, the blown engine of Marco Andretti. You see him right there up against the turn 4 signage. We'll go back to Tony Kanaan's car.
Yeah, so if we just slow down the video here, look at Wilson all the way down here inside on the apron. You can see him just right there, and now he's losing it. There he is. And he's going to do a 180. He's going to go back up the track and collect Bourdais. Now, it looked like he had room. He didn't need to be on the apron, but we don't know what happened before that or what got him down so low in the corner, unless he thought Bourdais was maybe not seeing him there and coming to the apex.
I mean, there could have been something going on the back straightaway, or there could have been some blocking, or maybe moved over.
Or something
it was
broke.
Forced down there, so we don't know until we talk to them. But there was, there's no reason to be where he was at when he lost the car.
It seemed to me like Justin Wilson had a good reason or a good idea what happened. So it'll be interesting to see if we can talk to him a little bit later. But
you talk about getting down on the apron. The thing that we have to keep in mind, it's 24-degree banking, and then the apron has none, effectively.
And the 24-degree banking has rubber from the top to the bottom, and the apron has none.
Talked about James Hinchcliffe not having a good night.
Vibration is getting really bad. There's nothing we can do. These tires aren't holding on. There's nothing we can do to the car. Any more weight, I'm not going to be able to turn it. Or any less weight, I'm not going to be able to turn it. Any more weight, I'm going to be backwards.
So he's got a vibration issue. So a lot of times that can be a camber or a toe alignment issue where the setup that they've chosen, somehow they're picking up rubber on the tires or they're spinning them on the wheel leaving pit lane. Somehow he's getting a wicked vibration on every run.
You and I talked to Dave Faustino yesterday, and I asked him about the vibrations that you had at Indy. Do you get it here? He goes, well, what happens is we get some pickup on the left rear tire, and that causes the rear tire to go out of balance, and then it just causes you all kinds of problems, and you can't differentiate whether it's the front or the rear that's the problem.
Dave Faustino, the race engineer for the number 12 Verizon Will Power car, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he said that left camber can really affect one way or the other if that pickup problem becomes terminal.
Yeah, and some toe out in the rear. If you toe out that inside rear, you can scrub that rubber off the tire and reduce the pickup, but once it goes bad, it's hard you can't make that adjustment.
Well, we get to the halfway mark here at Texas under full course caution. Jan?
Riding on board with Tony Kanaan, and you see him working the wheel under this pit stop, under the full course caution. They're going to change his steering wheel. There's been radio communication. They're concerned about the pit speed limiter may come on in gears lower than third. So they're going to take the opportunity during this stop to change the steering wheel. He'll lose a little bit of track position, but they hope that'll clear up the gremlin.
You know what clears up the gremlin? Go back to a car with a 5-speed that you have to shift over there that doesn't have all that electronic stuff on it.
Well,
I'm showing my age, aren't I?
You hope that on the pit stop, when you throw the steering wheel out and they give you another one, that you can get the right spline, because sometimes it's tricky to get these things on.
It is about to get very, very busy on pit lane, and there's the steering wheel that they will place.
As if the fueler doesn't have enough to do.
He's got the fuel probe and the steering wheel that he has to hand to the driver. Kanaan can remove his steering wheel quickly and kind of pitch it out, but he's going to be responsible for getting it placed back on.
Pitching a $30,000 steering wheel.
Say.
Usually when a driver pitches the steering wheel, you get in trouble from the team for that.
Why wouldn't they give it to the left front guy or something? The fuel, that guy's got 60 pounds or something with the probe and the nose they carry.
Ed Carpenter, the leader, will also be the first to stop on the top of the picture. They're not expecting to make changes, and they also know this puts them back on the same cycle as everyone else. Kevin?
Will Power at the bottom of the screen. He comes in third in this stint. It's the first time he's had to deal with traffic. They're going to take out a quarter turn of front ring. A really good stop for Will Power. Let's see the race on pit row between Dixon, Carpenter, and Power to the end. Who's going to get there first?
Will Power got there first. He got ahead of Carpenter. And there's the steering wheel change, and you talked about it, Paul.
Well, the other issue that happens is when you have to hold the steering wheel, so when the guys are changing the tires, the wheels don't start moving around on it.
And the one thing they got to be careful of is that they just relax and take their time. We're under yellow. You're not going to beat anybody out with a steering wheel change. And at Indy, they stripped the starter once he ran out of fuel and was on pit lane.
Well, drama at Texas Motor Speedway as Justin Wilson and Sebastian Bourdais have come together. We're under caution for the second time. We'll be back. Incident between the 19 of Justin Wilson and Sebastian Bourdais in the 11 is under review, but take a look at this action on pit road. This is Pagenaud.
Pagenaud's having trouble getting the fuel plugged in there. So that was the big delay. He lost a ton of time with that fuel delay. But check this out back here. Last year we made a lot of noise about games on pit lane. Look at Pagenaud's right rear guy way out in pit lane. And guess who was behind there? Will Power.
Will Power. Well, we talked about the problems on the racetrack and that Justin Wilson did not look happy at all. Let's go to Kelly and hear from Justin.
Wilson's just been cleared by medical, and yeah, when you got out of the car, you certainly did not look happy. We didn't get a clear view what happened.
I got a good run on Sebastian coming down the back straight, and he tried to block it, and I went down, dove underneath, but it kept coming and forced me below the white line on turning. I thought he was going to leave me a lane, but only left like half a lane. I had two wheels on the apron. So as I came back up on the apron, obviously just lost control on the hinge point, and just really disappointing. I thought, maybe we're not as quick as Power, but I thought we had a decent race car. We're good at the end of long stints. I thought the Boy Scouts America car could end up with a half-decent result out of this, but disappointing way to end the day.
Well, we're glad you're okay. Thank you, Justin. We're still under caution here at Texas Motor Speedway, but we'll be back with more of the action right after this.
Still under caution at Texas Motor Speedway. There's a look at Carlos Munoz, who under this caution came to pit road for a pit stop, but the banking's difficult while you're on it, but coming off of it is difficult as well, Paul. You talked about it.
Absolutely. They've never done this before. You enter the pit lane off of turn 3, which is flat, and now they're bringing them in off of turn 4. There's a huge transition from the banking onto the pit lane, and he just lost it coming in.
You're not buying it, Townsend.
Well, listen, I mean, we're pitting under yellow here, so sure, you might be able to gain a little bit, but I believe he did that under yellow at Barber as well, out of the pits, and you know, he's a young driver, still a rookie. He'll learn from that. He's awfully lucky not to hit anything.
Good thing is there's no damage to the 34. We heard from Justin Wilson. Let's hear from Sebastian Bourdais on the incident. Kelly?
Who's also just been cleared by medical. Sebastian, take us through that crash from your perspective.
I don't know. I mean, I got a bit checked up by my teammate, and then Justin got a run after that. You know, I thought I had locked the inside to, you know, protect the position to Justin, but all of a sudden I heard, you know, looking inside, and we're just nearly in turn 3, and Justin ended up in the apron and hit the banking and spun out, caught me on the way up. Honestly, I don't know if it's a, you know, racing incident. I haven't seen anything, so I don't know if it's a racing incident, my fault or his fault, but, you know, if it's my fault, I apologize.
We're going green. Thanks, Sebastian.
Nice response by Sebastian Bourdais.
That's
One
the
of the
first
things
time I've ever heard him say that. I was expecting the complete opposite story.
Never apologized to you?
He never apologized to me once.
Back green at Texas Motor Speedway, the Verizon IndyCar Series. 134 laps now complete. Will Power out in front, but I think the guys behind, every pit stop they make is another adjustment. It's another move forward. It's finding a little bit of speed.
And look at these two guys side by side. Ed Carpenter to the high side of Will Power. Further back, Montoya and Dixon side by side.
And Joseph Newgarden in the red, white, and blue 67 right there behind them.
Look what fresh rubber does for the confidence of these guys tonight.
We have hit the reset button, and now we've got 2 by 2 by 2, and now we've got a race.
Well, every time these guys have come in, they've had a chance to improve. I think Will Power started out so well, but the cautions have brought the field back to him. And as you said, Paul, there's a race on.
Yeah, the track has completely changed now. When we started the race, the sun was still up. Turns 1 and turn 3 were still in the sun. It was slick. Lots more rubber down. The track has cooled down. They're making more downforce, and now we're seeing some side-by-side racing.
Well, and we saw a lot of teams actually add front wing, and that surprised all 3 of us sitting here, and it's almost like teams flinched a little bit and were afraid they were going to be loose. Problems for Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Wow. All I can tell you is he just rolled by me, not
Engine died.
Oh, and you heard it on the radio. It appears to be another engine failure, the second
You guys
for
okay?
Andretti Autosport.
I'm not sure. They just switched steering wheels for Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Just said you guys don't see it. I don't.
And Paul, you can talk about the sun going down, rubber getting rubbered in, but side by side only lasted for about a lap there. They're back into hanging on to these things as the tire degradation continues to be the biggest challenge.
We're seeing a little bit of gamesmanship now. You saw Power react to Ed's move to the inside. He blocked that move. So as see this action here, they're getting more serious now.
Dixon has closed in on the back, and for the first time tonight, as they headed into 1, I saw Will Power with what looked to be a little twitch off the back of the number 12 Penske entry.
And here comes TK with a big run on Montoya, goes to the high side on the tri-oval, high into turn 1. Let's see if he can make it stick.
We're going to find out that if you started with a good car, will you maintain that balance, and perhaps starting with a little bit of push like some of these drivers did. The track is coming to him. Kanaan holding on up on the high side. Montoya loses out. Kanaan drops down in front.
And the top 5 cars right now are the power broker drivers of the IndyCar Series. When you look at these guys, Will Power, Ed Carpenter, Dixon, Kanaan, Juan Pablo Montoya, that they are the best of the best.
New fast lap of the race goes to Tony Kanaan on lap 138. Like you said, fresh rubber makes a huge difference, Townsend. We'll see if after this restart, the balance stays a little bit longer as the trip begins to cool a bit.
And don't forget, some of these guys could have made a downforce adjustment on that last pit stop, and they'll certainly be working tire pressures and their controls to try to optimize their run, learning from the first 2 or 3 stints in tonight's race. And right now, those Ganassi boys look really tuned in.
Kanaan looks really strong.
He's looked strong from the very beginning. but then we saw the car drop away.
That's an interesting situation. You had Scott Dixon looking for clean air off the back of Carpenter. Kanaan wanting clean air to the high side of Dixon. I think Kanaan got surprised at how high Dixon went into turn 3 and 4.
I think what you saw there was some mirror driving and probably some help from the spotter, knowing that, hey, Tony's running a little bit higher line, he's closing on you, move it up a little bit, and he took the air off him, and now it's killed Kanaan's.
I didn't know you knew that there was mirrors in these things. You never used those in your career.
105 to go.
105 to go. You hear the radio transmission. The other thing that you guys talk about is a very valid point. You can't just run up underneath the back of someone here and stay there through the corner. You've got to get that front wing out to one side to maintain that downforce on the front, or you're going to lose the front end. You'll get massive understeer.
Well, that aerial shot is great because we can see the side-to-side separation. Some guys poking low for air, some guys poking high. On board with Graham Rahal. Man, tough night. He's running up high.
He's moved up to 11th, so they have worked all night long, hung in there, made changes, and now up to 11th, trying to take the battle to Takuma Sato.
I'll have to give it to Graham. He's not given up. He's hung in there and never say die, and he's a long way to go. We're just over halfway. So.
Never say die, but man, he is awfully close to the wall on the exit at 2 and 4.
Running that high line, the very high line.
And it's working. It's working. I don't know how he got his lap back. I guess with the way the yellows fell.
Nice pass there, babe.
Every Bobby Rahal radio transmission ends in babe.
I don't remember him. Did he call Jimmy Vassar
Just
or Kenny
take a little bit of air away from him at 3-4.
I never paid too much attention to it, but the surprise, I mean, he's coming forward, and the guy, his next guy on the list is Castro Neves, who's really been pretty quiet all night.
And we haven't seen anybody run that line since Marco Andretti did on the opening laps.
And you mentioned Marco Andretti, the Andretti team not having a good night, Jan.
No, they are not. Ryan, you said on the radio, don't you guys see it? What did you feel?
It just lost power all of a sudden, aggressively lost power, and then we got an oil pressure alarm. And then it sounded really bad after that. Tried to get down to the apron. I thought we were spilling oil everywhere, which I guess we were, but just really frustrating. We made a change on that last stop that I thought would bring us in the game there. But we were running 7th, still had a shot at it. But it was a long night, and we needed the points tonight most of all.
Tough night for Andretti Autosport.
Paul, I wonder if the engine temp was just getting too high, because remember when Hinch pitted and they talk about removing a shutter to try to cool down the engines a little bit? That's the second Andretti Honda with issues tonight.
Yeah, it is a surprise, and it is very, very hot today. And tonight it's obviously cooled down a little bit, but it's probably still 90 degrees, so could be a cooling problem.
Just under 100 laps to go, and things closing down at the front, but Will Power holding down the point. He has been strong since they unloaded off the truck. He runs strong still. 154 laps complete here at Texas Motor Speedway, and that man, Will Power, is out in front. He started on the pole, and he has run strong from the drop of the green. It's Ed Carpenter in second, and Dixon in third. Let's have Kevin take us through the field as Firestone takes us through the field.
Well, Will Power has already clinched the 2 bonus points for the most laps led. For the moment, it's 22 points the advantage in the championship. As he said, I'm not thinking about championship this year, just race wins, and it seemed to really change after Fontana getting that win last year. He has great confidence on these oval tracks, and he's cruising right now, Jan.
And not too far behind, Ed Carpenter caught a major break when there was that caution. Now he is on the same cycle as everyone else. Remember, he had to pit early to make changes. First it was too much push, then they overcorrected, it got loose. Now he is definitely happier with the car. Back behind Carpenter, we wait for Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon has been pleased with his car, but he's been told on the radio that one of the fastest cars on the track is his teammate, Tony Kanaan, who's starting to close in from behind as well. Look at the kind of progress he has made. I just checked with the team, and the change of steering wheel was successful. He no longer has the misfire that was related to the pit speed limiter. Kelly?
Juan Pablo Montoya runs 5th. He started this weekend by describing his car as, quote, horrible, terrible, bad. He went on to qualify 4th and has run in the top 5 for much of the night. One issue for him, he's having trouble seeing the pit box. He's been asking his crew to get a flashlight or something to help him see. Kevin?
Well, that last yellow came at a very fortuitous time for Simon Pagenaud because they had developed a vibration and wanted to come in. They did lose the 2 stops with difficulty getting it into the fuel probe engaged, but he's still very much in contention, running in the 6th position. Kelly?
Behind him is that young American Joseph Newgarden, who had his best career qualifying effort. He was on the front row. His team owner, Sarah Fisher, is not here. She's expecting to give birth to a son any day now. Joseph told me he was disappointed she wasn't here to see his qualifying, but he's glad she's not here to bear the heat. Jan?
And you can see a great look of Mikhail Aloshin now starting to close into the back of Joseph Newgarden. Their pit stops have improved, but they have told him, and look at his line, he has a much different line. They've told him on pit lane, you're pulling too close to the wall, give us more room to operate.
It's been a good run for Ryan Briscoe. There we see him back in the NTT data car. And by the way, that company, their North American headquarters are located here nearby in Plano, Texas. They have a lot of guests here, but he's able to use strategy and the yellows to get back up on the lead lap and back in contention. He said, though, when the tires wear, it's almost disastrous trying to enter and exit the corners, but he's hanging in very nicely right now in 9th position. And then his former teammate, Elio Castroneves, running in the 10th position. That's about where he's been throughout the day. No major issues as far as what he's been seeing and dealing with in the race, but they're just not quite as quick as they'd like to be after starting in 13th position.
Graham Rahal has been one of the big movers of the night in the National Guard car. He started 21st, he's up to 11, but the team has struggled with their oval setup. It seems like his car is running better on the low side. The good news for them is they're off to do some oval testing in this 2-week break between Milwaukee, Pocono, and Iowa. Jan?
And Charlie Kimball just jumped ahead. You can see he is now ahead of Graham Rahal. He's been playing catch up, both Charlie Kimball and Graham Rahal. Oh, there's a bit of a wiggle. They came in later, 1 lap than everyone else because they're trying to make up from being 1 lap down. Now they're on the same cycle. In fact, 1 pit lap later, looking good for Kimball.
Sebastian Saavedra's running 13th. He started with a bit of understeer, then the car got loose. It seems like it's sort of settled in now. By the way, with his teammate Sebastian Bourdais out, team owner Jimmy Vasser has moved over to the pit box of Sebastian Saavedra.
And there's our Firestone through the field. Look back at the top 13 so far right now. It's Will Power who continues out in front. With the drivers behind him, Ed Carpenter, Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, not letting him get away. Plenty more battle to come from Texas Motor Speedway in the Firestone 600.
Saw Scott Dixon coming in, side by side pitting earlier. Here is Simon Pagenaud, who last pitted on lap 126. About a front wing adjustment that time for Pagenaud. He's running 6 before he came in. Kelly?
Graham Rahal coming in a lap or 2 before they wanted to, but the tires were just going off so quickly. They were starting to lose some time and drop position, so they brought him in early.
Rahal back out. And I think the busiest man out here has been Townsend Bell, who's been keeping up with all of the pit stops. And after we see Helio Castroneves, we'll pick Townsend's brain.
2-1 in.
We see James Hinchcliffe has to take the long way around Helio Castroneves. We hear Roger Penske talking to the team. A half turn of front wing there for Castroneves, who was running 10th before this pit cycle began.
And a quick summary on that pit cycle down at pit in. It was very interesting to see what happened as Power's going to the front. We'll watch Power. In the meantime, Dixon was loose. That's why he pitted.
This is not the last pit stop. They're going to need one more after this one here on lap 171 for Will Power. Tim Cindric is who is talking with him. Power with a very quick stop from Team Penske.
All right, Townsend, where are we with pit stops?
Well,
Who's got the advantage?
Right now we're watching Ed Carpenter, and man, you can't stop any better than that. That was a perfect threshold break from your pit speed limiter.
A bit of lockup, but he got out of it, kept it rolling. Very nice lap for Ed Carpenter.
And that can be huge as he cycles through. Remember, he's racing Will Power awfully close on the track. Now, I think what we're seeing here, guys, about 65, 70 laps to go, and guys have to make another stop. They're going to split the difference, try to run each stint at about 35 laps if it stays green, and try to take advantage of fresh rubber.
Charlie Kimball, who was a bit loose earlier, we saw a big twitch, is back on pit road.
And here's the battle. Will Power on track, Ed Carpenter, I think, on the back straightaway. There he is. That's the battle for the lead.
Carpenter trying to get up to speed, and he's going to have Graham Rahal in between him. He wants to close back down on Power, but Power already with some temperature in the tires.
Now Ed's going to get up to speed. If Graham keeps working that high line that he likes, it's going to help Ed Carpenter because he likes to run low. He'll have clean air. He's got to make sure he doesn't get Saavedra in front of him here. There he goes.
He definitely doesn't want to get into a battle with a car that's a lap down.
But this is going to help him, Paul, because Will Power's up there in a little heavier traffic, but now he's got Kimball coming right out of the pits in front of him. Ed Carpenter's going to have to go high.
Not at all what Ed Carpenter wanted to see. Works around the high side of Kimball.
Kimball's been in a couple of sandwiches today.
Yeah, he has. And Takuma Sato is next. Carpenter not clearing it as quickly as he wants to, side by side with Sato through 1 and 2. This is going to be frustrating. Carpenter has things he wants to work on, and that is Will Power out in front, but Sato holding tough down on the inside.
And Ed Carpenter's so strong at Indianapolis, your pole sitter. He ran easily in the top 5 all day, poised for a run at the end before he had the contact with Hinchcliffe. Here's Tony Kanaan going to the outside, his teammate Scott Dixon. I was going to say, Paul, I've never seen somebody so mad to qualify 5th as Ed Carpenter was yesterday. He knows he's got a great chance, and he's driving with fury in the eyes tonight.
I think it was a little bit of an overreaction. I think, he did a pretty good job in qualifying. I think he had more, but I think at the end of the day, that was a pretty good starting spot. Montoya has had about a 20-second lead here. He's going longer than anybody else. Locks it up a little bit on the way in, and here he comes.
Look for your board. We got a light on it. 5 away. 3, 2, 1. Hit your board.
You hear them mentioning that light as Juan Pablo was having issues seeing his pit stop, and you saw that half a turn of front wing is what he was asking for. 8 seconds on the pit stop. We'll see how he cycles through.
And Juan Pablo Montoya has had a couple of speeding tickets on pit road already this year. So every time he locks that brake on the way in, you kind of hold your breath a little bit and hope he gets it slowed down and gets to that pit lane speed limiter. There's Will Power.
Now your pit speed limit is dictated by the button on the steering wheel, but getting to that line, you always try to brake at the last possible second so you can just nail it and have the shortest elapsed time throughout the whole experience. But if you push it too much, it's just a killer, especially here in Texas.
But it's not the magic button, as you say. You don't just hit it and it slows you down to that speed. You've got to be at that speed when you cross the line, Paul.
Yeah, and we look here at Will Power. He's coming up on his teammate, Helio Castroneves. It's amazing to me how bad he's struggled tonight when you consider that Juan Pablo and Will have really been the 2 fastest cars on the track.
And I wouldn't call Castroneves and Power the best of buddies, and Castroneves fighting to stay on the lead lap here. Be interesting to see how hard Power has to work to get around him as we watch Kanaan go to the high side of Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, and Kanaan just got past Simon Pagenaud, and then Scott Dixon that you see right there one more time.
Leaders at start finish.
Kanaan showing the strength that he has in the number 10, but will he have enough with one stop left to go? Can he close down on Will Power?
The way it is right now, I mean, Will has held off every bit of pressure that has been thrown at him. And he's been able to, when it counted, on the longer runs, he's been able to pull away a little bit and keep a buffer between himself and the second place car.
So, Paul, that was the captain, Roger Penske, on the horn with Elio saying the leaders at start-finish, meaning right behind you. What does he do as a team owner here? He's got his guy that he's coaching to try to stay on the lead lap for a chance to win. You've driven for him
before. He's got the worst case scenario. He's got first and second in the championship. He obviously wants his guy to win.
Look at Carpenter. To the high side.
Inside.
Just flew up behind Will Power, rockets around the high side and takes the lead. Does Power have a problem?
Like I said, Ed Carpenter has come here with one mission, to win and only to win. And right now he's pulling away fast. And you're right, Will Power seems to have an issue.
And I've been mistaken. He hasn't been able to hold off the pressure. And Ed has got the car now, and he's just rocketed in one lap. He's put like 300 yards on Will.
It looked like Power couldn't hold the car down to the inside. Does he have a problem?
You okay?
Let's hear.
Get that 2 cars in front. We'll get it back here. We're going to have one more stop.
That's Tim Cindric saying, "Are you okay?" And Will's quite relaxed, actually. Just saying, he had a couple cars in front of him. He just had to get out of it. So he's going to gather himself back up and make a run.
And that is a completely different Will Power than we've heard in the past. Normally, in the past on the ovals, when something like that would happen, he would completely unravel himself. And I think, maybe he's just going to settle down here, cool the tires down. We know he's got a fast car, so if there's another restart, we could have a shootout at the end.
And Sebastian Saavedra just got a drive-through penalty for hitting pit equipment on their last pit stop. So hopefully he won't cycle out in front of the battle for the lead, but Will Power's been running out in front so much all night long. Now he's going to have to do battle with Ed Carpenter, and Carpenter is not going to want to give up that position. He's going to want to make amends for Indianapolis.
I think Will's calm in the fact that he knows he's got a great car. He knows that everybody has to make one more stop, and he knows that he's got a great chance to get it back from Carpenter.
And he also knows he's not battling Carpenter in the championship. If he has to finish second to Carpenter, that's okay, because the guy he's fighting is Helio.
But you said earlier in the race he's not thinking about points anymore.
I mean, you got to think about it. You got to think about it.
Juan Pablo Montoya, his first start here at Texas Motor Speedway in an IndyCar. Let's take a look at JPM in today's Mazda driver profile. Speed with which he passed Will Power was stunning, and I know that Power said he got caught in some traffic, but still, it was amazing. And now Ed Carpenter, with the bit in his teeth and a clean racetrack in front, is driving to the front. Can he take home the checkered flag? 56 laps to go from the Firestone 600 in Texas Motor Speedway. Ed Carpenter out in front, and Will Power beginning to close down about a 1/10 of a second a lap. Power is able to whittle off that lead of Ed Carpenter. Catching him is one thing, getting past him is another. But there is another pit stop to go.
There is another pit stop, and right now, Ed working on Helio Castroneves. Castroneves fighting to stay on the lead lap and also fighting to help out his teammate.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell you what, he's hooked up right now, that's for sure.
Carpenter, a very strong car, looking back a little bit further. Good battle here. Juan Pablo Montoya up on the high side.
It gets around. And that makes something we haven't seen so far this season. Your top 5 runners all Chevy powered. We've had a couple Hondas with issues tonight, but right now Chevy holding down the front here at Texas.
And both of those Hondas that have had issues have been with Andretti Autosport. So bad night for Honda and bad night for Andretti, and Ed Carpenter needs to get around. A little wiggle by Castroneves there at the exit of the corner.
I thought I saw a little wiggle out of Ed as well. So Ed's got to get by, but he doesn't need a mistake here that could end his night. So always treacherous here at Texas, especially deep into the stint on tires.
Well, and then Castroneves has traffic in front of him that he's closing in on. So Carpenter's got his hands full, and it's about to get really busy, Kevin.
And Tim Cindric is watching his driver, Will Power, try to chase down the leader right now. Will's offies have been great out front. How is the car now that he's in traffic?
Yeah, traffic, you get a bit understeer, you see, and that's what he caught there when he got behind Helio. He just caught a bit understeer, and that's how Ed got by him. So it's just going to come down to when everybody stops. It's going to be the next probably 10 laps, I would say. And then it's going to be a question of, we can go to the end on fuel, but what do you do on tires?
Will you take make any changes in the last stint to make the car a little quicker, taking a risk on downforce in the last stop?
I'm not sure here. I think we need to, the track's going to continue to get freer here.
Thank you. That's Tim Cindric.
And that was the first time that I saw Ed get up on the high side. He's really been stuck on the bottom.
Well, he got frustrated on the lap before. He had to check up coming out of 2. Power had to check up behind him. But look at how easy Castroneves made Will Power's life. He got right out of the way.
And I saw that too. But what I see right now and what I heard from Tim Cindric is I see Ed Carpenter with a better car in traffic than Will Power has. He's got that understeer, and they need to get that out on that next stop because he's got to be able to work traffic if he wants to win this race.
Well, certainly Helio made it difficult for him, made life hard and allowed Power to close up. But now that they've gotten by, Ed is starting to stretch away a little bit.
You know, you said it earlier, Paul. Ed Carpenter has established himself as the benchmark on super speedways in this series, starting off with that first win at Kentucky, such strong runs at Texas, Indianapolis, and he really is the baseline. He's the guy that you've got to beat here at Texas if you're going to win.
Ed Carpenter coming around to complete lap 200. That means there are 48 to go from here at Texas Motor Speedway. The Firestone 600, and Carpenter trying to do all he can to work through traffic and extend the lead that he has. Can he hold on for another victory on an oval? Ed Carpenter looking for the checkered flag. front. Let's take a look at our Firestone Extra Mile. The guy who has really impressed tonight in the spotlight, it's got to be Mikhail Aloshin, and I would have given it to him for his qualifying run yesterday, but he's been very impressive tonight, a unique line.
Yeah, he continues to just get more and more impressive. He drives a completely different line to all these oval drivers that are out here, and to be running ahead of guys like Helio Castroneves, Ryan Briscoe, that's a pretty tall order.
It is a very tall order.
Brian, with all the green flag running, we only have 7 cars left on the lead lap. Now with Kanaan coming in, we've got 6 cars on the lead lap.
And of course, he is the first to blink. And the pit stop should be very good for the last one because they don't necessarily need to take all the fuel. Kevin? Helio Castroneves can make it on fuel the rest of the way. The tires might be a little bit worn. This isn't going to be too long of a stint, though. Just 40, 41 laps, the final time for Castroneves. Let's see if they do anything from the front wing. Everybody's been making a change virtually every time, and they'll make just a half-turn adjustment, and Castroneves is back out.
Looks like they took a half turn of wing out, so they took a little front downforce away from Castroneves, and I think it's a good call by Tony Kanaan. You want to, with these pit rules, if it goes yellow, they close pit lane. You want to be the first person to make your last pit stop.
I was going to say, here's the question is, do you want to be the first person, or do you want to stay out and try to get a yellow? Because if you're the first person to pit, you're going to lose a lap and a half, as Jan told us earlier. Do you want to try to hang out there and see if a late yellow comes, and then you're a lap ahead?
Well, you also have fresher tires, Townsend. I think the
Simon Pagenaud in for his final stop. They are not going to make a change this time, so Pagenaud is back out. He was running 6 before these sequenced in. There's Ryan Briscoe we see in the NTT data car also coming in. And Graham Rahal also, who has soldiered home and has got an opportunity to get a decent finish here in this one today. Rahal making his final stop. 2 big turns for Rahal.
Go.
And that was a lot of front wing that was just added. 2 big turns, 2 front turns of front wing. That's a significant angle increase.
Scott Dixon almost losing it. Jan, coming to you.
And Scott Dixon again on a fairly similar cycle. We're watching the front of the car to see which way he goes on the front wing, and they decide to take it out. All right, Aloshin also can, this time they don't give him a little more room between the wall. He has been pulling in very close. They've asked him to give some more room. This looks like it's going according to plan. Aloshin back underway, and look at the amount of rubber on the front of that car.
Looks like they might have taken wing out of Aloshin's Honda-powered entry.
So the point I wanted to make is if Ed stays out, if a yellow were to come here, there's only 3 cars on the lead lap at that point. So I think there's a benefit to hanging out, but he's going to pit this lap, it looks like.
When you know you've got that last stop that you've got to do.
Half turn of front wing.
Half turn of front wing. Now Carpenter is heading to pit road.
Nice and steady.
Wow, that looks smooth. And
Talking Ed Carpenter into the box. This time he doesn't quite break as late. Wants to be sure he doesn't slide by. Will Power's going to stop on the same lap. No changes for Carpenter. And then here's Will Power into his spot further ahead the pit lane. We'll keep an eye on Ed Carpenter as he's coming up at 60 miles an hour. Final stop for Power, and Ed Carpenter is easily going to beat him back out. So it's going to be, again, a race on the track as Power tries to chase down Carpenter.
And you can see a race on pit lane, Paul, coming off the speed limiter with those bumps. This is the last green flag exit for these guys on that apron, and you're driving right on the limit, trying to get any advantage, and it looks like Carpenter does a better job coming out onto the backstretch.
Well, nice and smooth for Carpenter and his crew, but it's pretty tough to beat the Penske crew off pit lane, and that team did it. And now he's in the driver's seat. He's got a clean track. He's in front of Power, so this is where the race is going to come down with 35 laps.
And they needed that perfect pit stop, and they got it. Power, why is he back in?
Did he get a penalty for pit speed? He did. We're just hearing he got a penalty for pit speed, and that is a killer. You hear Tim Cindric say, we hope we get a caution. That's going to put him a lap down.
And that's what I talked about earlier with those little mistakes that you make. Like at the 500, he sped on the last pit stop. And those are the things that'll kill you. That'll ruin your night right there.
Well, not only will it ruin your night, it will ruin your championship. As close as it is, you're giving away points, and you do that 2 or 3 times throughout the year, and you'll find yourself in second place. He's found himself there before.
You can see that Cindric's pretty upset about that. I mean, he'll lose a lap and a half, maybe 2 laps by just having to drive through the pits.
Did come back from a penalty in Detroit and won.
Stormed through the field.
Yeah, but that's a different ball game.
But right now, Will Power has dropped well down the order. He's 1 lap down in almost one lap down. He's got Carpenter right behind him, trying to put him a lap down now. He's in 6th position, Will Power is.
And now Ed Carpenter is the car right behind him. If Carpenter can find a little extra speed, he could get by and put him a lap down, but that would definitely be difficult.
But he doesn't need it. He turned a lap at 2:13.2. He's 10 seconds ahead of Kanaan. He just needs to manage the gap, and this race is his.
All he really needs to do is just sit there and chase Power. He doesn't need to fight with him. He just needs to sit there
rabbit in front.
and maintain the gap.
The complexion of the race has changed, as it often does at Texas Motor Speedway. In the blink of an eye, Ed Carpenter is now out in front. .5 laps to go for Ed Carpenter here at Texas Motor Speedway. Penalties, small mistakes, they get you. You talked about it, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, he's locked up coming into the pits, blows through the speeding box. I mean, you can see the tires completely locked up. Same kind of mistake at Indy. I mean, you just can't have those, especially this late in the race. The last pit stop of the game, you can't make a mistake on it.
It was a good 50 yards past the pit-in cone, and when you get the brake locked up like that, if you don't get the wheel rolling again, you're not going to get the car decelerated, and that's exactly the mistake that happened. Juan Pablo Montoya in the red and white number 2. Tony Kanaan in the 10, and Montoya on the high side. First race in an IndyCar for Montoya here. Granted, he's been here in a Cup car in NASCAR, but man, they have got that number 2 hooked up.
And Paul, you and I were talking earlier today about the kind of Montoya effect. You know, when he first came on the scene in IndyCar, he was sensational. Then he went to NASCAR. He's come back to IndyCar. We haven't really seen that sensational performance until tonight. We're starting to see, I think, for the first time, the Montoya of old coming back.
Well, I had to put him in check there. We asked him on the pre-race show. Paul wants to see the old Montoya, so we're seeing some of it tonight. When he showed up on the scene, I mean, the guy was unstoppable. And, you know, he's taking his time learning these cars, but, man, we sure love it when he runs like this.
He's running so strong, and so is that man, Ed Carpenter, now being shown over 12.5 seconds out in front of Montoya, then Kanaan, then Pagenaud, then Dixon. Power back in 6th, just holding on to the end of the lead lap. And you had a very good point, Paul. As long as Ed Carpenter can just look up there and see Will Power in front of him, he's fine. He's got a big lead over second place. He just needs to hit his marks, as they say,
He's
do the laps.
Has a half a lap lead. you know, there's no big traffic in front of him, so just pace yourself out the rest of the way.
Yeah, it's easy to say, guys, but 20 laps to go, and this is where the tire management becomes really difficult for everybody, including Ed Carpenter. As good as his car is, we've seen issues almost through the field with almost every team, whether it's a blistered tire, a vibration, or maybe an issue with traffic, and anything can happen. So you're going to want to watch this one to the end.
And Ed did complain in the early part of the race that he came in early because he thought he had a tire problem.
But remember, it doesn't have to be your tire problem. It can be another guy's tire problem, another guy's blistered tire when he loses control and takes you with him. We've already seen it today.
It could be a radio problem and a spotter trying to communicate to a guy who doesn't realize that Ed's there coming by to lap him. So anything's possible. 19 laps to go. That's a long ways from the winner's circle at this point. Ed's got to stay focused. We know he will. He's got a great car. His lead grows, but he does have traffic he's got to continue to deal with.
The thing about these ovals, as we talked about, it's treacherous for everybody. It'll be at the end of the stint when the checkered flag falls, so everybody's tires will be just a little bit worn. Montoya,
14 seconds in front of you. It's the 20 car.
Hear the radio saying 14 seconds in front, so Carpenter is still pulling away from Montoya.
He is pulling away, and that's Montoya's radio manager, John Booslag. He was my crew chief when I drove at Penske Racing my whole career. He's a 30-year guy at Penske Racing, and he's up on the box calling the races, so got some work to do, but this guy is just flying.
Ed Carpenter can hold on here and take this victory. It makes him feel better personally, but it will never make up for Indy, will it?
It won't make up for Indy. I mean, that means everything to Ed Carpenter. You saw how happy he is the last 2 years to sit on pole, but he loves to win races. It doesn't matter where he is, and I'm looking at a couple guys working high, and look at the rubber starting to build there. A lot of marbles on that high line, and Ed's got to be careful. If he's going around lap cars, it's the kind of little thing that we saw a few years ago with J.R. Hildebrand at the Indy 500 or with Graham Rahal here in Texas. Yeah. It can catch you out, and it's not easy to see. In fact, you can't really see that stuff at speed on the high line.
Yeah, and you have a guy that runs up on the high line and loses it up there in front of you, hits the wall and drops a wing down in front of you. Could cause somebody else could cause you a problem.
248 laps is what we'll run. We're on 233, so they are ticking by.
Plus 14 seconds, plus 14.
For Ed Carpenter running just under 25-second laps right now.
Now we're watching a guy with so much experience here on the ovals. He's got a 14-second lead. Watch his line through 3 and 4. He's really taking the edge off of the tires, not requiring a lot down low. He runs a full car width off the apron there in 3 and 4, grows the radius, and just nice and smooth. Little wiggle there at the exit of 4. Yeah. I promise you, this is no easy deal. 13 laps to go.
And the lead now up to 15.7 seconds. As a crew chief, what are you telling your driver on the radio when the lead continues to grow? You see the marbles there,
I'm telling him this. I'm saying, Ed, marbles forming on the high line. Just be careful going around traffic. You're trying to give him everything you can in terms of information to make smart decisions and protect the equipment.
Protect the equipment. Don't make a mistake. Hit your marks. Hit your marks. You know, in those little loose situations where that car stepped out on, use your tools. Try to keep that under check.
Well, you don't want to back off too much as you see him go around Carlos Munoz. You don't want to back off to the point that you have to stay on the outside of somebody for too long. You want to get the pass done as quickly as you can, but at the same point in time, you've got to be careful. You've got to drive with a little bit of conservation right now. You know that you're coming up to the checkered flag in just 11 laps.
Watching telemetry with Tony Kanaan in your upper right-hand corner. Watch the throttle trace. 10 laps to go roughly on the tires here. Big lift all the way off the throttle. It looks to be like a big understeer there through 3 and 4.
It's a lot of wheel.
Yeah, and you know, the surprising thing is the level of understeer that everybody has struggled with all night, and most of the cars were extremely loose in practice and qualifying.
Well, we said that early on. It seemed like teams and drivers adding wing almost every stop, so it's like they had set up for the cars being very loose, and what they ended up with was cars that were pushing a lot. So that changing track condition, as we talked about, because of the weather and the rubber that was put down, really confused a lot of people, I believe.
Now, while Tony Kanaan is fighting what appears to be an understeer condition, Ed Carpenter, lap after lap, looks a little bit more free in turn 4 as the back end is losing a little bit of traction. Let's watch him here.
You call that free, I call that scary loose.
That's neutral. balanced, whatever you want. Now he's got big traffic. This is where he's got to be careful. He's got a loose race car in 3 and 4, 2 cars wide in front of him.
And you don't want to see this. You want to be calm. You want to be cool. This is how you run into problems. You want to be careful here.
And a 17-second lead on Montoya. He's just got to nurse it home, and there he is. He backs out of it, trying to make smart decisions.
You maybe saw that there. Take a look at Will Power letting those 2 cars that he was getting by, what he thought. He's been screaming on the radio for the last few laps about the lap traffic. Hasn't been very happy.
And a problem for Takuma Sato.
That's another Honda with issues at the back end, and it's bright.
Stop right there. Get down, stop right there. Get out of the car.
Listen, fire's never a funny thing, but the spotter's doing a good job to get him urgently out of there. He's taking his time to get his, I'm not sure what he's doing.
And much like Marco Andretti's engine problem, that was substantial, as you would say. I mean, something has come apart big time and exited the block to create a fire like that, because it sprayed oil all over the exhaust and the hot turbos, and that's where the fire comes from.
And that was smart calling by the spotter to get it stopped. The quicker you stop, the quicker the safety crew can put the fire out and the less damage.
You remember how scary it was a few years ago when Simona Di Silvestro was here trying to get out of her car when she was on fire, and that was hard to watch. On board with Graham Rahal, we see Sato down low.
He already knows.
Wow.
Man,
he had slowed a little bit. He had already felt it tighten up.
7 laps to go.
That is called something exiting the motor.
Yep. I can remember a time when the engine manufacturers used to say it was an electrical problem.
Now, if you're Ed
because
Carpenter,
the rod cut the wiring harness.
Oh, if I was going to say, Brian, sorry for interrupting. If you're Ed Carpenter, wow, he's laid out.
Wow.
How would you be laid out?
Gamesmanship?
Gamesmanship, or
there's no way out.
Cars on the lead lap. 5 laps to go right here.
No way.
5 laps to go. There's no way.
I mean, are they even going to get this thing cleaned up? Yeah, the safety crew doing an awesome
There's
job
Dan
pushing
Andrea.
Sato behind the wall. This thing's going to go green in another 2 laps.
Here's a look at the laps since the last pit stop, and the lap that they stopped on. Carpenter and Montoya really about the same.
And if I could tell you guys, when you talk about gamesmanship, this is not the first time that Ed Carpenter and right ahead of him, Scott Dixon, have laid out tires, and then they did not come to pit road. So this may be gamesmanship.
Well, but hang on. We've got 3 or 4 laps on a restart, and if I'm, say, Tony Kanaan, do I take a gamble and just put fresh rubber on so I've got a rocket ship, take downforce out? I only need tires for 3 laps. Maybe I go to -5 on the wing and new rubber and just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a point. But
no, I think they're going to stay out.
If I was leading, I would not come in now. But what we have on our hands right here, Saturday night shootout.
Well, there goes the. But Tony Kanaan's guys, I'm looking. I can see them laid out. They have not walked back to the pit wall. Let's see what happens. Everybody's
so
on pit
Rahal's
lane.
in. Munoz is in.
Now those guys are non-factors. They're a couple, 2-3 laps down. So we're looking for a Kanaan, a Dixon, a Pagano, or a Power on pit lane. They're still on the lead lap. Power is on pit lane, I believe.
Look at this just a second ago. That's Montoya. Oh.
What's that all about? Little Colombian handshake.
And the theory here is Townsend talked about there's only 6 cars on the lead lap. You're still going to be 6. So go ahead and give it a go and see what you can do with the fresh rubber. Simon Pagano almost came in, but they changed their mind at the last moment. But let's watch Will Power. This could be a fun restart with a guy that's not been real happy the last few laps.
I love that strategy. Go for it. You're going to stay on the lead lap. Watch that guy. One thing they didn't change was downforce level. So they left that race downforce level in the car. But, man, he's going to be on a tear. He's already mad about the pit speed penalty.
Are we about to see the aggressive Will Power again, the same Will Power that we saw at Detroit?
Well, listen, on new rubber, you could pass 6 cars in the first corner, no problem, and have a heck of a run coming on the last 3 laps.
The worst case scenario is when you have the tires cool down in this situation. Ed was running 204s, 205s with the hot tires. Now that they've cooled off, it could be very, very slippery for a lap or 2, and a guy could pounce in 1 lap.
And all these guys coming to pit lane.
Well, they thought of it again after balking and deciding not to go the last time. Simon Pagano does come in, so the 5th and 6th place cars both are going to be on fresh Firestones.
Green this time.
It's like you said, you really don't have a lot to lose. Elio Castroneves in as well. But for the leader, if he had pitted, they would have stayed out potentially. If he stays out, then they pit. So you go off strategy if you're back there at the end of the lead lap to see if you can't gain something.
This is going to be fun to watch Will Power on fresh
that
tires.
Montoya is not up closer than that.
I think he's going to be.
Because Tony is right on top of Montoya.
Yep.
Now, the officials typically want you nose to tail centered on your nose, and Will Power was high there.
Green, green, green. Will Power looks like to be the 5th car in line as they come down to turn 1 the first time. Fresh Firestones inside of him. Simon Pagenaud, they are both on fresh rubber.
Yeah, but Pagenaud's blocked in with Dixon. Now Pagenaud's to the inside. This could be 4 wide.
Kanaan just in front. You see Pagenaud around the high side of Dixon.
Look at Power go.
Power went. He's awfully high. It looked like his right rear was in the marbles a little bit. He's going to be coming on this last lap. He's up to 3rd.
White flag is out. Ed Carpenter looking for redemption. And you see Will Power now beginning to close on Montoya. He'll get the pass done before they get to the corner, or will he? Side by side with Montoya. That is going to slow him down. Ed Carpenter out of turn 4. Ed Carpenter across the line. He wins the Firestone 600.
Guys, and Will Power's 2nd after a pit speed penalty under green flag conditions. That could be the move that gives him a championship at the end of the season, to go pit with 3 to go.
Well, he definitely made up for his mistake on pit lane. That was disastrous, and that was a good call by Cindric to call him in on those tires. That was really on him.
I was texting him from up here.
2 starts, 1 pole, 1 win for Ed Carpenter in 2014. You see Tony George there congratulating the crew. 3rd career win for Carpenter. He'll add Texas to the list that includes Kentucky and Fontana. The guy that knows how to go in circles, Ed Carpenter right there. And you know what? We give Ed a lot of credit, but the 3 of us know you cannot go fast on an oval unless the car is right. We saw that with a lot of drivers tonight. That team has found the right recipe.
And it's not just driving on the oval. It's everything Ed did tonight. Under green flag conditions, it's coming to the line at the very limit. The way he came into his pit box, just locked up, hit his marks every time. The setup, the job the guys do over the wall, the crew, preparation, everything was perfect tonight.
Kelly?
Big celebration down here in Tony George, who happens to be Ed Carpenter's stepfather, among those celebrating after the heartbreak at Indy. How much edge does this take off of that stink?
This was a great effort by these guys. They made perfect pit stops. You know, the strategy kept evolving. It was changing. It's like a box of chocolates. We didn't know what we were going to get, but it was a tough race. You know, everybody had trouble keeping the car underneath them, the tires underneath them, but Ed did a great job of managing his, so it's going to be a nice night to celebrate and look forward to the next one.
Congratulations.
Ed Carpenter rolling in, and man, his heart had to be in his throat. How many more laps was it going to take before Will Power got there?
Oh, 1 more lap, and it was over. You know, it was game over if Will Power had 1 more lap.
And I think too, the single file restart rule has helped a lot. If there had been a side-by-side restart here, there would have been more traffic involved, and it may not have slowed him down much, but it certainly would have kept a lot of the problems out of the way.
Watching Will Power have a conversation there.
Doesn't look particularly happy, and I know he wants to win races, but he looks angry at someone. He's talking to Scott Dixon. Obviously a long night for Dixon as well as he comes across the line in 5th, but excuse me. Yeah, but gives an idea how hard they were working.
Yeah, he's mad about that penalty.
Will, before we talk about the race, are you talking with Scott about lap traffic? I know you weren't really happy with that late in the race.
I saw Scott on. I don't know what they were doing, but what an awesome call by my team to get tires. I thought I just screwed it up for him again and got another drive-through. That's 4 drive-throughs in 5 races. It's not good enough. I just got anyone who says I don't get drive-throughs or penalties are crazy, man. I get them every race.
You had lost the lead to Carpenter there late. Because that was also because of traffic, I believe. Yeah. Without the penalty, would you have won this race?
I don't know. Hard to say. Ed was awful strong, man. He's an awesome driver, and it would have been a good battle there at the end. my car was good at the end of stints, but just real happy for the Verizon car to come in second, and just a lot of fun.
And then the call, was there any hesitation about that? It made perfect sense. 6 on the lead lap, let's go for it.
Exactly, yeah, just, oh man, Tim Cindric and Dave, my engineer, I mean, what a great car. They always put me in great positions, so I was just happy to get back to second, you know, like, it was just an awesome last lap.
I know you wanted the win, but that might have been a championship drive getting back to second for Will Power.
Ed Carpenter climbing out. The confetti already falling, and the fireworks have been going off since the checkered flag has fallen, and this is going to take a little bit of the load off for Ed Carpenter. They'll celebrate there. We'll go to Jan.
And gets a celebration hug from wife and children. What a great night to see Dad and what he did on the racetrack. You had this confidence when we talked earlier. You were very unhappy with qualifying, but you had a good feeling about tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I knew we had a good car. We had a good test here back a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, whenever it was. I just felt like we left some on the table in qualifying, but it made me extra motivated for tonight. And first 2 stints weren't great. Had 1 bad stint, but the guys just made great adjustments all night, and the Fuzzy's car was hooked up by the end. I think we were for sure the car to beat at the end. I was a little worried about that last yellow. I knew guys were going to come in. You know, we talked about what we would do in that situation, and it was kind of undecided, but Tim and the boys made the right call. Awesome night, you know. I've loved this racetrack for a long time and never had a lot of bad luck here. Really always wanted to win here, so super excited.
You say you really want to win here, but I know you really wanted to win at Indianapolis. You wanted to drink that milk. You thought you had a great shot this year. Now you're going to shoot the 6 shooters. Is that somewhat of redemption?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, we had a car to win Indy, and you know, I'm not saying we would have beat Ryan, but I think we were the best shot to have a shot at Ryan. So it's nice to come back here and get a win. Really proud of the team. You know, 2 wins already this year. It's a good year. So, you know, all the credit goes to these guys. Awesome pit stops. They give Mike Conway and I both great cars, and obviously to Fuzzy's Vodka for making this all happen.
Ed Carpenter with his very first win here at Texas Motor Speedway.
And in true Texas Motor Speedway fashion, it came right down to the bitter end.
It really did, and the best part about this race is you had to drive it. It was a battle for these guys all day, and this guy came out on top.
Great job by Ed Carpenter. You're watching NBC SN's coverage of IndyCar, brought to you by Firestone. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone. And by TireRack.com. Find, deliver, install, TireRack. TireRack.com. There's more to come from Texas right after this.